everyone. I hope that I am audible right now. If I am, then I will be just starting now. Alright, wait to see. I will okay, I think I will have to quit and reopen to be able to share my screen. So let me just take a minute here. Alright, so let me just share. Also, keep me updated in the chat because this is an experiment for us. I just want to make sure that everything is at all times available. So if you can see these slides, just let me know you can see these slides and I will just start. All right, awesome. And make sure that you can anytime post questions and I will be seeing it in Discord. So let's just start. And the thing that I want to talk about is about the web, and only prerequisites that I require is that you know a bit about HTML, CSS, and JS, and that's the key here. And also that you know about KML, which I understand that many of you have done the task, so you have some kind of acquaintance there. The first thing I want to talk is many times I have seen, and this is a very particular recurring question, that I'm not able to understand how would I go about this proposal, or how would this idea be explained better, or how do I get selected into GSOC 2025. That's the whole thing. A proper walkthrough of how to make a holistic design and development. This is also for those who are making their Flutter applications, because this talks about the design and the development parts. And I will be taking an example of La Palma for the web as an example. So I would be talking about, if I were to make La Palma on the web instead of as an application, then how would I have done it? And let's keep going. So design thinking is a 5-stage process, and I will just before I move further, I will just want to make sure that, are you able to see the slides change? So are you able to see something like design thinking? All right, awesome. Awesome. Just wanted to confirm. So the very first thing is that you will have to empathize with the idea that what is being showed to you in the proposal. Like, what is written there? Is it about, like in my case, it was about La Palma. So I had to understand that, yeah, there are some kind of tectonic shifts, then those cause some kind of volcanic eruption that are also guided by earthquakes. And there were like 14,000 earthquakes in a span of 1 week, in the very first week that the mega volcano erupted of the Cumbre Vieja. So there was a lot of data to be processed, and there is a lot of research work in the empathize phase. You need to understand, and honestly it will show up, and I will be just showing you how I made that data so clear that it was very much understandable for the mentors and the admins, that yeah, I know this project and I can just simply do this project. The next thing is, you need to define it. You need to make very clear, concise statements that how you'd be defining it and what would be the steps or the key process to reach about it. The next thing is ideate. So what am I going to use for this? What is my idea behind it? What is how I can relate all my business goal is nothing but whatever problem statement is given to you, to your solutions, like in the app stages, that what would be using, that what you would be using, some kind of button, some kind of data that is being passed from GeoJSON to KML, and some other things. And I will be making a very clear and concise statement about each of the processes as well. The next is about prototyping. So I'll be discussing out how you can design it, how you can wireframe it, versus how you can make the whole real type of a component system that you can use in your app, so that you are making a very consistent application. It does not mean that for one page you have a button that looks maybe a square shape, the other page you have a button that has a circular boundaries or border radius, which is not consistent, right? And the last thing is to test. So testing is something that you can do by simply doing a manual testing. This is something called usability testing by Steve Crook, who was a UX legendary writer and a UXE. He wrote about something called Don't Make Me Think. And in that very book, and I really love that book, he talks that we should do a testing once every month from morning to afternoon, have three people sit and just encourage them how you can use this application, and take someone who does not have a very good technical background, so he cannot simply or easily understand or use the app, because we know how our app would work, we know how our flows would work, but would the end user know, and would he be intrigued to know? Would it be very simplistic, and he would be able to understand and reach on all the pages? Would it be that some pages too much hidden or has too many number of clicks to it that you're not able to convey the most critical information? So let's start with it, then let's start and keep going with each of the phase. So empathize. So this is the kind of problem statement that you get in your Google Summer of Code project ideas, right? So this was the problem statement that was shown to me, and this was on the project ideas page for 2022, and it says that we are having a 350R, means that it is a large size project, and it has the La Palma volcano eruption tracking tool, where we are making a volcanic eruption data for 3 months of volcano eruption that has been going. So there could be some APIs that were live, and at that point we could have used those APIs, and I had the application ready, which was not having too much good UI, but it had all the data parsed from a JSON and showing it like a table format. So I had this kind of thing, and I showed that, and I showed the KML, that how I can make this. So these are the two separate things that I was able to show. And next, that Google Earth and some drones are getting that data, and the data was taken by Copernicus, NASA, Central EO. There were multiple various resources to understand the data, and it also states that we need information about lava tracks, houses and roads destroyed, farms and lands affected, everything that is written. So it requires you web scraping. The very first thing I had to show that I can do simple web scraping, and it is a medium difficulty project, so it was not too hard, which is a good thing. I mean, could be that project is hard, but if you understand, if you have empathized, you would be able to do it. So you are also getting problem statements like this, and you will have to understand how you will go about it. So this was my research. My research was to find all the websites that have shown this data in a very good way, and they have all the KML ready for you, so you can get the APIs and show it in the way that you want to show it. So this was a world 3D map. If you go to this URL right now, it is down now, because as the volcano eruption ended, the API all went offline. But at that time it was very much active, and it was one of the part of my research that, yeah, I want to show data like this, and how can I convey all the business needs and all the UI information together? How can I tailor it specifically to what the mentors want? How do the mentors want it? What do they exactly want to see? What is something that I may show would only show up as a flex, but do not convey the real information that I want to convey? So these are the things you have to take care of. You can show some screenshots that this is the data, this is a website link, or you can provide some references. Yeah, I have taken, this is the acknowledgement, this is the reference guide, whatever I am using, this is the doc for what I am trying to convey. These are some of the proofs. At the same time, you are in very concise manner, you are showing, yeah, I can do this, this goes like this, these are the steps and stages. So the next thing is define. So never start developing, and this is a very big problem I also saw in your T5 or your task 5s, that many of you drew the animation icon, but no one cared enough to see how it acts or how it shows up in Discord. So if you go to the Discord app and you see the icons that animate, sometimes it shows on the home icon, if you click it multiple times, sometimes it shows the home icon with doors and windows animating, and for just 1/10 of the time it shows a dinosaur that comes out of the building. And I believe that many of you have not researched enough to see that how exactly it is working. So there is kind of a math.random that is very simple in sense, but it is also making two kinds of UI, and it is making a kind of a keyframe or a visme that between these two keyframe it will be animating depending on how many times he has clicked and what is the math.random. So there are some things that the more you dig in, the more you will be able to find, yeah, it is working like this. Similarly, if I were to make the Google Voice UI and I had the time, I would first be getting a web speech API or maybe some equivalent of that. I would be taking example of dictaphone, which is something I shared in the Mozilla Web Docs. They already show that if you are talking or if you are making some kind of sounds, then it is giving you an amplitude, and that particular amplitude can be converted into a design from your data or float 32 array. So if I have this, yeah, I know that my data view can store all the audio data, then I can in real time make an implementation that moves all the Google Voice web. But that's a separate challenge. So I want to say, or what I want to convey is, never start developing unless and until you understand the problem, unless and until you feel, yeah, you are the master of this problem. So this is how I define my workflow, and this is something that along the same lines but differently at the same time you will have to do. This is something that is very much on the lines of how we want things in a UML diagram, which is a standard architecture for making these kinds of diagrams. And this is a UML sequence diagram. I made several UML diagrams. I'm just showing half of what I did in this particular segment, but yeah, it shows that I am taking scraping data from relevant websites which were at that moment available and online. Then I'm taking that data to Flutter app. Later I also did something that I scraped and took all the data offline, and I didn't had any APIs that were connected to it. But yeah, it is showing what was the idea at the project ideation phase. So this is how you have to define your problem, that I have this, then I am going to make some kind of setting info connections, then it will try to display something on the master machine, it will try to establish a connection to the Liquid Galaxy. I only show LG 1, 2 and 3 because I had at that time only 3 rigs. You could have shown with 5 rigs with a better diagram maybe. And if something is correct, then how it will showcase. If something is incorrect, then how it will display a try again message, and how it will click on visualize, then that KML data would be sent, then it will be displayed back to the user. So it is showing a sequence that if I do this, this will happen, which will make this happen, and on the back result from the Liquid Galaxy, the user will see this. This is one of the key ways how you have to describe your workflow, how you have to make your workflow, how you have to understand the data representation. The next is also a very important one, the UML use case diagram. So this is another UML diagram. It shows that, yeah, I'm going to connect to my Liquid Galaxy rig, I'm going to scrape some data, I'm going to launch my Liquid Galaxy rig, I'm going to send some KML, and this is everything similar or on the similar lines that what you can do on the web. If I were to make a web application from La Palma, but this is also on the same line that I cannot start any of the web work or any of the app work unless and until I understand what's the key goal behind it, or what am I trying to achieve. If I don't understand it, it is not very useful that I just straight away start digging into and start coding, right? So this is something you will have to think about, that yeah, these will be my pages, this is how the design will go, this is how the things will go. I will lay out all the architecture in front of me that I understand, yeah, this is what I have to do. And when you are clear on your head, you can make the person next to you, you can make your admins and mentors also convinced that yeah, you understand the project. And the next thing is ideate. So how do we ideate this particular thing? Because this happened in Flutter application, this was a Flutter Dart app, but how do I ideate this La Palma for the web? So the very first thing I need to think about is, and I can use some tool like Balsamiq or Balsamiq on Figma, which is for wireframing. And wireframing is not a low fidelity design or even a high fidelity mockup. It is a design that you will keep to yourself. It is just your layout architecture. You can maybe even use a pen and paper, and you can just have things, because most of the times when I am making an application, I have some papers lying here. I usually draw things on paper. Once I am convinced and once I am sure, yeah, this is what we want. I recently had a work using this Balsamiq, which was in cross origin storage, which is something that Chrome is making. And Chrome says that we want to make a cross origin storage which would be open source for everyone, but we would be showing all the wireframes on how it looks like on Chrome. So the alert boxes and other icons or other alert dialogues will not show up in the way in their own polyfill UI, the way that it needs to show on Safari or other browsers like Firefox, but only for Chrome for the moment. So I need to think that if I am making this and I am making this on this devices, then what would be the best way to show it? So let's think, and you can just write in the comments too. Then I want to have buttons in my application. Definitely, who doesn't want buttons in their application? I want to have a button to make a visualization. I want to have a button to connect to the LG. I want to have links in my application. Links in web is your anchor tag, whereas button has a button standard element. Links are used to navigate between pages. So if you have something that is navigating between, let's say, about page to home page to settings page, then you need a link. It can look like a button, but it needs to be made with the anchor tag. It does not have to be made with the button element, and it has to have a href attribute which is pointing to where you want to go. Whereas a button is something when you are incorporating some javascript. So it is like, I am going to click this button, which is going to visualize some data onto the Liquid Galaxy. So there is some JavaScript involved that is making some SSH connection, and those are going. The next thing is maps. I can use any mockup that is available, pre-available for maps, and I can just think of if I need some buttons to zoom in, zoom out, and make some kind of other behaviors, or if they are pre-available onto the very map library. So I need to think as a UXC. I need to think between the UXD and the UXE lenses. I need to think that if it is not available on the design phase, I'm going to make the button so that my engineering phase, when it comes, then I would have those buttons ready. Or I can say that I have some engineering knowledge, so I know that these maps have these kind of buttons and these kind of street view person that can get just dropped, and I know that those exist. You just have to enable a boolean that will allow you to zoom in, zoom out, and do other things, or have some kind of navigation and control. So I can just eliminate those things in the design phase, because I would say so that when we are working and when we are on a very big product team, then there would be a UXD who would be designing these things. Right now you are your own UXD because you are designing and you have to think about, and there would be a UXC or a front end engineer who would be thinking, yeah, how do I make these happen to the real application, and what things were not needed, and there's a lot of back and forth going. You can eliminate all those back and forth once you have the design knowledge, given I know that some of you already have a lot of developmental knowledge. So I would want this, and just think of any other things that I have might have missed, because I wrote buttons, links, map, tab, switches, progress bar, forms. Might be that there is something I forgot to mention that would also be needed when I'm making this application. So what I'm going to do is, either I will be using some standard design system such as the Material 3.0. This is the material design system. It has colors and that have a U effect. So if you make a color, let's say in OKLCH, which is a color just like RGB, and you can just change a U value by using a CSS variable that can range from anywhere between 0 to some other higher number that can change the values of the colors and how it looks. So if I make my colors in OKLCH, which says light, chroma, and U, then I can just simply change the U levels between any two numbers, maybe like 0 to 360 degrees, and that will allow me to reflect or show any color. So this is one very good thing about this material UI. The other thing is, you have a lot of widgets already, or tokens as they say, already available. So you have buttons, checkbox, chips, dialogues, and maybe that's all you need. Maybe it could be that you do not need anything and you do not have to wireframe or make your own things. But I would suggest, or it is much better, that if you make your own components library, that later if we love it, then you can change it into your design system. So right now what you see in front of you, the material web.dev, is the component library. But if you go to material.io, or I believe it is material design 3.io, something like that, then you will go to the design which a UXD might have been doing. So that's a design system that tells about my font would look like this, my font weight would look like this. My font have two types of font. One is your utilitarian font of Roboto, which is very similar to how fonts look in Android or other systems, and one is your branding font, which Google uses, Google Sans. Of course, you can also use something like Product Sans or Lato. These are also very close. So you have to think that, yeah, if I'm making this, I need to make it consistent. It should not look like I'm using something like Comic Sans on one page, then the buttons do not get the font because I am not able to give them, so I'm just using some other font that it is able to get, and I am making a mess of my application. So I would want you to make these components for the sake of making consistent diagrams. And next thing I do want to have, or I do want to say is, so now you understand the project idea. Now you understand how the La Palma has all the UML diagrams. Now what you need to understand is, I need to use my media queries, and I'm not talking about the media queries of width and height. Those are not very much needed, because you can just make your own fluid kind of design without using them. You can use things like font clamp. You can use things that are already fluid using VH or DVH units. The thing that I want to talk about in media is your reduced motion. So it means that some kind of flickering effects or some kind of flashes can give people seizures, especially people with vestibular motion disorder. So a reduced motion says that I'm going to reduce the motion for those people so that they do not suffer this kind of problem. And maybe I have a lot of animations, but for some of the people the animations will not show. The next thing is color scheme. So some people prefer your light color, some people prefer your dark color. There is a proper media query called prefers color scheme that takes the color from the OS level. So it sees that, yeah, I use my operating system in dark mode, or I use my Android device in dark mode, I use my Android device in light mode. Then it takes those values and you have that variable ready for you. You use this media query to define which color variables you want to use. And by color variables, I mean you should be using CSS variables to define all your OKLCH colors. This way that you have it written on the very top in a root, in a pseudo root class or in a pseudo host class, that they can be used all over, and there would be a consistent color that you have at one place and everyone is able to use it. You can make something that they can have a toggle for light or dark mode if they want to inside the application as well. The next thing is color contrast. I usually prefer that you do not have too much contrast as well. It should not be like black over white with a 21:1, the highest level of contrast that you offer. It could be something like 18:1, a little lesser white, off white, and a little lesser black, which is like rich black. So why this? Because you do not want to have too much bleediness on the eyes, because there is a lot of color variation. There is colors pop too much is also a problem. So you would want to have a very good design that takes care of these things, and you will have to make all your colors as variables inside Figma first. You will have to make all your fonts as variables inside Figma first. Then you will have to change all of those variables into your CSS variables, so you are ready for the web. That's how the whole holistic process of making for the web goes. And prototyping, yeah, definitely, because now you know you have your components ready. You just have to place them wherever you want to place them, and you have to develop with it. So this is a very important phase. In prototype, we usually talk about how the designer is prototyping, but I'm also going to talk about how you develop those prototypes. So whatever is being designed is also on par with whatever is being developed. As you see it in the design, it should also be the same as it is in development. If it has three kinds of stages, like if a button has a primary, secondary, tertiary, disabled, tonal, hovered, active, different kinds of states, then you should also have the same in development. And maybe it could be a web component. I will talk about web component that has these kind of states that are defined by an attribute, and you just change that attribute to primary, secondary, disabled, and you can change it programmatically, and that allow you to have that very same button element component that you can just use at different places inside your vanilla code. So let's now open Figma, and I think I will have to reshare at this moment. Before I reshare, I would want to see some of the comments. Maybe some of you have written something, and then I will just reshare this with the correct slide. Okay. One thing I found that it doesn't let you share the entire, oh, it lets you share the entire screen. That's good. So now I have the design open, and now I would be showcasing you that this is the button elements that I just made before this presentation started, and I will be making a different one. So what I want to convey here is, you make a frame, you make either you make an auto layout and you place the text, or you can simply omit the auto layout and just directly make it. You can use just any color that you feel that, yeah, this would be a very good color for my application, maybe somewhere in this. And you say that I want to have a tint of this blue purple, and that's something that I will also make here. So okay, just a moment. All right, so now I'm going to make it a component, and I have created a component. Then I will be able to make different copies of this component. I will be able to make these kinds of copies of the component, and I will be able to decide, yeah, I want to have a primary, I want to have a secondary, I want to have a different kinds of buttons that are available for me. So I will be creating something called a variant here, and my variant could be just anything, and these are like your square or circular buttons, and these are like more having a circular border radius. So I would be keeping the circular border radius as it is. I will be just changing from fill to stroke, maybe like this. And it could be that if I hover, then it changes from this to this. That I would be governing programmatically. So yeah, that is something that I wanted to convey. And yeah, it could be that you also want a disabled button. So for a designer, he has to write something like, also give a cursor not allowed when you are making this in development. But if you are the developer and designer, you already know it. You can just make it a little something like this, so it looks like, yeah, it is disabled, but at the same time this has a 3:1 contrast or a 4.5:1 contrast ratio, so it is accessible as well as disabled. When someone will place his mouse pointer, it will go as cursor not allowed. So that is a standard way of making things disabled. So I can have my own buttons and designs. This is the same thing that I want for all of my design components. So I will just go back and show this. Yeah, this. So this is how you will be making all your components before, and these are like the very smallest unit is called a token in material. So they call it at you make your tokens, and your tokens will make more tokens. Like you have this right on the right side, you have this modal or a pop-up. That pop-up has the buttons that are the same buttons on the left side. So this is how you first design, get all the things right on the design, and then you develop it. And now let's build, because I wanted to make it a talk about how you can do it on the web the right way. And for that, I have a code pen ready. I think I will be doing this, and my code pen would be somewhere here. Yeah. So let's take a moment to understand the whole huge amount of code that I have written. By first, let's do one thing. Let's understand the HTML, and let me just hide you from the whole jargon of things. So yeah, I say something like a button element, which is a custom element in your HTML. So HTML also offers the same components like you have in React, but these are more new, but these are also available in all the browsers now. So we made all those frameworks because natively in HTML you cannot do that initially, but now we can do that. So we should be doing that natively and make the most performant code that is possible with the most basic language possible. So I have this, and it has a label called primary button, and I will be just using this label in my JS. So I will just hide now all the, I will just remove all the CSS at the moment. I will say I don't need it. So if I remove it, yeah, so you have the text, and there was some CSS that is no longer here. And now let me go to the JS part. It says that I want to define my button element that extends my HTML element. So this is a way of making your ES6 classes, and it defines that, yeah, my button will have the same properties like an HTML element has, like the HTML button elements has. And I will be making a super constructor. So I will be taking all the properties of my parent, which is extends from, and then I will be making a shadow DOM. This all of these things will be happening in the shadow DOM. So you have this shadow element and your shadow.inner HTML. Inner HTML is usually a property that you should not use on your document, but we are using it on our document on the shadow root. So it is allowed at this one, because it is not like we are using a document.inner HTML and the user is giving an input. Those are the cases where inner HTML is not good, and you may have seen in MD and web docs that it is not good. So on a document fragment it can be done. And the next thing, it is asking you that, yeah, if you have a label, just give me that attribute. And this is the same way. I can make your labels. I can make something like a disabled is equal to true, and I can say disabled is equal to true. And if this will have a disabled attribute like it has here, then it will say, yeah, do you have this attribute? If you have this attribute, then color it gray, so people know that this is disabled. And do some additional styling as well that I have defined in my CSS. And your CSS goes inside your JS for these kind of components. So it says that use your system font, which is okay. Use some padding, use some border radius, use a background color, and these colors are defined on my on my root element, which is your own CSS file that is accessible to all the components. So this is available to everything, and it says light dark. What is this light dark? It says that if your OS has a light color backgrounds and your OS uses the light color, then it will show up as light. And if your OS uses the dark color, then or the dark modes, then it will have a dark color. As simple as that. So this light dark property is very good here. And now I'm saying that if my button is disabled, what I would be doing on those cases. And if I hover, then the color would change. If I'm active, then the color would change. As simple as that. And if the button is disabled, then it will have the disabled value. So this is pretty much all the 40 lines of code that you have to write to make it, and it already has the CSS inside it. So it is not very difficult. It can be a very new thing that comes at you, but if you have already made classes in JavaScript, then this should be very easy. And this also had some callbacks, like there is an change attribute or attribute change callback that defines that if my attribute change midway, so if this component is rendered but my attribute change, then I would be able to change just see the old and the new value, compare them, and make the changes rendered to the DOM. So you can make in a very efficient manner, you can make your changes the same way that we can use something like emerald library in React that allows me to see and make these changes. So this is also very much easy. At the same time, this can be new. That's fine. And now I will just uncomment my CSS to show that I have just defined my colors here, nothing else. So I'm just saying that, yeah, my dark colors in OKLCS is like this, my light colors are like this. Some colors are also in hex code, but you can use OKLCS for all of them. That should be better. So yeah, these should be OKLCS. That would be better. So why OKLCS? Because the first thing is, just by changing this H or the U value, I can just make any color from here. So I can make like red, blue, green, any kind of accent color that I want. And I can just leverage this by making a H variable that is defined as let's say 280. And because the chroma is very less here, so if I can increase the chroma values or increase the coloring here, then it should be having, this has a blue color, right? I can see a dark blue, but to make it more visible, yeah, now I have a solid blue color. And if I just change this value, so then I can just get any color, and this is better than HSL colors. This is better than, because we never had this kind of thing. So if a designer just sees, yeah, this is possible in CSS, he would be very happy, because this is made from a designer's mind of things, that you should be able to change your hue like this, and the lightness value should actually refer to your lightness value. And the last thing was this color scheme. So if I add this color light dark, and in my OS I'm using the dark mode, so this has the color changes inflected as well. So this is a very simple code. I will be just sharing the code. This is a very basic code, I mean, and this is a stepping stone on how you would be making your components. It could be that you wrote things like primary, secondary, disabled, more properties and more colorings. I made this too big so that it is visible, but it shouldn't be this big for an application. But yeah, you get the point. So that is about how dev goes, and that is okay. I have two slideshows, and that is how you can make your elements. So the very important thing is you stick to your HTML, CSS, JS for this year. Your basics won't die. You can use your vanilla and web components for the tech stack this year. That is very important. For the next years, we could have that. Yeah, people last year use their basics and the vanilla. So if people want to make in different frameworks, like someone wants to make in Vue, someone wants to make in Angular, which Google supports, and someone wants to make in React, which a lot of people love, then I would say that they would be, and someone wants to make in Svelte, then they all can just refer to the same web standards, and that would be easy for everyone. Because I saw that many people wanted to make application in Kotlin, and we did not have too many application of previous in Kotlin, so they had some problems, and I wouldn't want that. I am sticking to one framework. So I am reducing some kind of people that know something else, like someone knows Next.js, someone knows your lit components, and some other frameworks that are really cool and out there. So that would be all. I hope that you understand how you have to exactly go about it. I have laid the entire platform, entire framework for you. You have to just go by it, and it should be very important for you to understand. Yeah, this is how I would go about it, and this is one of the very important ways I can make it. So, yeah, that is all. And I would be just seeing and answering questions now. So, I would be removing. All right. So I'm just trying to see some questions now. Let's see that what questions you have written and if there are any. And I will be just moving to each of the chat. And if you haven't, then just write your questions, because this is your time to understand. This is your time to cross question. Why did you use this? This was not a very good way. This was a very good way. I learned something about it. Help others too. Yeah, this is something that you can take from this reference. What I understood about it, things like that. So let me just see. Okay, so if I were to tell you about the prerequisites and the tasks, those are all mentioned on the unique post, and you can already see that. Yeah, you can take screenshots if you want any part of it. Then I will ask if I can share it later. Uh, okay, don't worry about the. I saw that a lot of people wanted to take the slides, so I will share a PDF if that's okay. That's don't worry about it. You can definitely combine. So I would say that many components are not available in material. There were some things like, if I want to have a slider, then the slider is not available in material. So what can I do to make my own slider? I will have to definitely understand what the material design framework looks like, so I do not make something that, yeah, this looks out of the design framework, or someone can just point out, yeah, you made this, but the rest of it looks that Google made that. So I would want that you just see that how good the design library, the doc, the information is. So let's just see. I'm a beginner and I've just joined the community. I don't know if I'm not able to understand the task. So I would say that you read the task, and I was not given any of the research info for the La Palma as well, other than the ones that you saw in the problem statement, that there were some things that were given already. So just you can just take to yourself the project idea and just think by yourself that, yeah, what can I do, or what would be the right ways to make these information look in a way that the mentors want. Would the mentors love this to be part of the project, part of the master proposal that I'm going to make, and things like that. So you would be the in charge of how good you are able to convey your thoughts, and you have to understand first. That's the more important part. First you understand it, then you can only convey. Coding everything in JS file and just colors and CSS looks like really lets you distinguish. Yeah, it also really gives you the whole control. Like, you have the proper token level of control that you might not get if you use some, or if you're bound to using something. So I would want you to make it in a way that everything is made by you. And if you made a very good stunning design system, maybe it would be a design system that we would recommend people. Yeah, we had this design system in the previous years, just use this one and it can be made into any framework. Yes. Okay. Yeah, right now is not the time to be making the proposals, sending the proposals. You can make them definitely, but by your own. I would say something regarding this. So if you know that KML might not be that everyone knew beforehand joining the Liquid Galaxy. We all learned in the process. So it is not something that it shouldn't stop you. And for me, it was that I also didn't know Flutter, but by the end of the time, I was able to respect Flutter and the creators of it in such a way, because they did a very good job in this very language. So it is that if something is new to you, if you're up for it, you can definitely achieve it even if you didn't know it beforehand. If you have a designer friend, I would want you to have them check the work for you, or sometimes you can just look it up at awards or take some design inspirations. I think that the best would be to take some design Can we use AR code to create more? You can definitely, but you will have to first, let's say that you get a project idea, then you will have to make some agreements with your mentor and understand what he might find best. So that is a very uh, later process right now. Are there any design system? I saw that the Flowpy design system is good. Many people use Shared CDN, I believe that's the name, and many people use some other one design system. I think it was the base design system by Uber, something like that. So there are some good design systems out there. Was one recently released by Dropbox as well, and many other companies have their design systems that they would want you to use as a standard. So definitely look for, I would say there are just two good design systems that I personally love. That's a personal opinion, that are made by Google and Apple. Both have their own world class renowned applications and they use it pretty well. So if you want to go something like a neumorphic type for design, then you can go for the Apple design system. You would really love something like the modals that appear have a Gaussian blur effect, which looks really incredible. So if you can make that, and or if you want to directly use it, that's up to you. What prospects to be addressed when drafting UX? I have given a FAQ PDF in the FAQ channel, which shows about design heuristics that tells everything you should be addressing in UX. UX is different from UI. Just think of a. I mean, it is the same also, because aesthetic usability effect is a UX concept that it should look good, which is also the same thing for UI. But think of a road, and think of a road that everyone is. That is like very clean, very polished, and it has a very good height, and the cars can, or the people can just go by it. But they are using a different road which is like in between jungle, and it is not so good, but it is just enough big, but that's the shortest part. That's why people are using that kind of road. So that's a kind of difference between UX and UI. But also I do not buy in too much that there is a lot of difference. UX and UI are just like the two like the I would say that UX is a super class of UI. It encompasses everything. So if someone is saying UX, he also cares about UI in a way. Should it be more design focused or dev? So why I'm sharing the web and I talked more about the design, because this year we are focusing on UX. The last year I believe we were focusing more on AI. Every year we make some kind of good focusing aspects. This year I sometimes we really find that yeah, this thing should be improved. So next year we might want more better visualizations. So this is the idea, that if we want better visualizations, how can I do that? Then we would want people who can think on the design levels too. So that's the idea. I would want you to think in a design focused manner when you are making your master proposal, because that would have more design screens than any context or any data. It would not have any code. So the best you can do is make a very good design and impress us. What prospects to be? Okay, there are too many questions. Let me read them one by one. Should we focus on dynamic or a rather clean but simple UI when we are designing our UI? So it also depends on the needs, right? If I were to make something that was pretty much unusable but just looks good, then it would not be very important, right? So there was something like a calendar widget in La Palma, which was a bit dynamic. It also changed languages. It also had the whole, if you change into Arabic, it will just flip right to left. So it had the whole thing, and it had really good colors. So you can just click on any two dates, it would be dynamically making that thing. But it was also a need for the application, that it we need to have a very good date range picker and what's the best that you could give. So sometimes you will have to think of the business goal first. You will have to think what's my problem statement written, and then according to it you can make a very good UI. You can keep it simple, or you can Depending on the complexity that is needed, you can design it on complex levels. I meant whether discuss project ideas. No, you cannot discuss project ideas right now. If we started discussing project idea, think of the huge volumes of emails that would be getting. But later we would be talking about it, so it's not like something that you are not. We are just early in the process for discussing project ideas right now. Do we have the freedom of creating a design system as a part of the? You can create a components library which can later become a design system. What I mean is there's a difference. For components library, as I showed in one of the slides, I talked what do I need in the ideation phase. Do I need buttons? Do I need links? So just design what you need for the moment. And if we loved it, because you might not be needing, let's say, a progress bar in your application, it may not be needed, but it is needed in your design system, because design system wants that you have everything that how you would do for the standard component. So you can make just those components in a components library which you want in your project, which are part of your application. And if we love it later, you can expand it into a design system which will have more laws written and more things about the and let me just show you how do we define. And there is a very good open source browser. I don't know if people have heard it. I'm not talking about Chromium, by the way. It is called, I think it is called let me just try to remember. It is called Ladybird. Yeah, so Ladybird is a open independent browser, and they made a very good design system which they defined how would be making it and what would be the brochure that someone who wants to understand a design system and is an end user would see it. And I will just share my screen to show it. So I think I have it somewhere. Yeah, and here. This is also available, so if you want to download it, I will just send you the link to it. Is on GitHub somewhere. So this is a brand guideline which is sort of like a design system guideline for Ladybird, which is a new upcoming independent browser. Many people from Google, Safari, Firefox are all who have made these browsers are also helping in making it. The idea is that we do not want to get a fork of Blink or Gecko, and we want to make something of our own. That's the idea behind this browser. So they had this whole thing that how would my designing go from introduction to your vision, your mission about the idea, what comes as your brand guideline, how would the logo look like, which happens in many products. So if you were to let's say make a components library, then you were to make it in a design system and someone is using that, then he would try to show why is it a fit. And if it happened the other way, that he has made the design system for your product, then it happens in this way. So this is like one of the key things you can take some of the idea from. So how would you define my logo in a logo type? How would it look in a logo mark? What's the clarity of it, how it looks like when it is in a particular aspect ratio? Does it look good? How it does it look with the logo and the text together? Does it look too clumsy, or is it available? What does it look like if it is black and white? What would some people who have a low contrast would be able to see it or not? If it is a yellow light yellow logo, how would people see it in white background, something like that? So you define things starting from logo, you define the sizes, you define your colors are very important in design system also. If I see that if I see Apple, then they have mostly used black and white, but they also have an ability to make accent colors. In Uber's design system, I think it is called base design system, something like that, they have only used black and white, but it looks so good because they have taken care of sizes and colors together. How does it look against other apps? What's the placement of things? How does my avatar, how does my things in bad aspect ratios would look, and what to avoid is also a thing. Like if you have a logo and you are making it, how would it look like? Your colors are most important thing that you will have to define in your Figma CSS variables both. And what would be the text against color? Would it and I have seen some slides that do not follow this particular thing. You have just made any color and you have not checked about the color contrast ratio. After some time it becomes second nature to see the color contrast ratio, but for an application that has a that is made to stand on par with world class application, you will have to take care of the basics too, right? So your typography, and you were making a design system, so if Google makes it, they would be using product sans, or it is a Google sans font. And if some other company, like if Apple makes it, I believe it is San Francisco with some other font as well. If Ubuntu makes it, there is something called Ubuntu sans. So and GitHub has something called Mona sans, and there is one other, I forgot the name. And you will also have to define, and you do not have to make your own font. I hope that's clear. And you can just use free faces or gallery and think that what colors and what fonts does my component look good at. Does it look good in Enter when I make the buttons, or would it good look good in some other font? So this is also a very important part. And if you can see, the design system for a product is not a small thing. It also follows a proper hierarchy and how it would look like. There is some visual elements too that are available for it. What would be the best colors and backgrounds that go together with my application? If I make something that has a very Google type of an image, like let's say I am showing a lot of people who have different kind of disabilities, and I'm just pasting that same image into Apple's image where they actually show a logo of a single person, that it would not look good, because they have made the design system, they have claimed that there are some kind of images that go good with about it. So that is also something. uh, how would the branding look like? And this is just a showcase. From here it is like I'm showing it to the end user. This is now not a designer's part. This is more of a showcase that how it would look like in products and things and more. But yeah, so you get the idea, right? And I will just stop the screening. Okay, so let me just read if there are more questions. I think I've answered this. I have answered this. If I just know full stack and not KML and Flutter, so I can contribute. You have to learn it, right? If you don't know something, what you do, you learn it, right? So if you are passionate about a project idea, there are also some project idea that are not in Flutter but in web. Also, very less ideas are on web at the moment. We are still seeing things, experimenting things, right? So if you were very good in full stack, you have good knowledge about your web basics in front end too, and maybe you can just look it up that KML is not so difficult. It is a markup based language, and XML based similar to HTML. It has its own tags, and it has I would say it is not that complex of a thing. So don't think of KML as a programming tech stack that you will have to be very good at. You can still make very good visualizations on just using Google Earth without very deep knowledge about everything in KML, just having a basics of it. So yeah, I think there are some people who are trying to write. Let's just see. Yeah, there is a prerequisite that needs to be done in Flutter. And I think that if someone knows the web, he can definitely know Flutter. And there is a reason behind it. The reason is because if you know Ian Hickson, who is the creator of Flutter, and he worked before at Netscape Navigator, and then he joined Google for 16 years to be one of the creators or the main creator for Flutter. Before that, he was leading the WCAG, which is the which is the web, not the WCAG, which was the, I think it was some HTML web, WOTWG. Yeah, it was the WOTWG, or the Web Working Group for HTML. So if he was leading that, it means he was really good in his front end skills. He was leading that very thing that laid the frontier for all the web as we know it. So it was like your Chrome, your Safari, and your Mozilla all come together to make the web with a standardization that the W3C offers. And the WOTWG laid the guideline for HTML and all the HTML proposals. And the same guy who made the, or the laid the very basics for front end for HTML, CSS, and JS is the same guy who made Flutter. So he took a lot of things into Flutter that if when I was learning from scratching from the very basics, that I was able to see that yeah, he just took some of the very good knowledge that he has to show into a new language that he is making. So I would say that anyone would be able to learn it. It is not something very difficult if you already know web. So yeah, I think that someone is still typing, and if this would be the end of questions, then it was very nice having this conversation. If there are some more questions, please feel free to ask. We still have some time. All right, I think there are no more questions. Thank you so much for joining this meet. I hope you learned a lot. I will be sharing the presentation, and if you need some other help, you can just definitely tag me in the Discord. I will be just be available. So yeah, thank you so much.